Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, back to class, and this is Dinna. Hope you all are doing good. Today we are going to see about the principles and practices of management part 2, where in this we are going to see much more deeply about the functions of management. As a management student, you should always familiar with what are the functions of management, how does this works in an organization. Basically, there are 5 important functions of management, which are as planning, organizing, directing, controlling, staffing. And Coons O'Donnell, his functions is most widely accepted all over. So, in this video, we are going to see much more about all these functions. So, in the next side of the slide, you can see that Posto Corp. So, this is a very important question that is asking in all the net exam, especially as a multiple choice questions. So, Luther Gulick, who have put forward this concept Post Corp, where P stands for planning, O stands for organizing, staffing, directing, coordinating, reporting, and budgeting. So, most of the questions is coming as a multiple choice as well as the match the following. So, please do study about that. So, friends, these are the management functions which are accepted worldwide, especially the planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. We will see separately into this in this video lecture. So, according to Mary Parker Follett, management is the art of getting things done through the people. So, by this functions only that can be done together. The first function we are going to see about planning. According to the Coons and O'Donnell, planning is deciding in advance what to do, how to do, and who is to do. Planning always bridges the gap between where we are to and where we want to go. So it makes possible things to occur which would not otherwise occur. So planning is the basic managerial functions that we have to study. So there are different types of features of planning. The first feature we just want to discuss is all about future oriented. Planning always depend upon the future. Planning basically focus on the future. It is an absurd idea of plan what has already been happened in the past. So basically, it's correct forecasting of the future situation which leads to correct decision about the future courses of action. The next feature is planning and decision making. Planning always involves the selection of suitable courses of action. So in planning, it is recommended to select the best option out of all available alternatives. The third feature is it's a pervasive function. Why it is called as so? Planning always involves all pervasive and is required to all levels of management. However, it's all increases at successively higher levels of management as said. The next feature we are going to discuss about, it is always a continuous process. Planning is always a continuous process and managers performing at all levels need to plan. So everybody in an organization have a planning. According to that only the organization works. Managers need to be imbibed with the complex process of perception. So from this we can understand that the unique characteristics of planning, and it is essential for an organization to stand up at their heights because planning is very much needed at every arena of an organizational setting. Next, we are going to see about the types of planning. So, accordingly, on the basis of activity covered, it is divided into corporate planning and functional planning. So, what is this corporate planning? The planning that activities at the top level with long-term orientation. It includes the setting of objectives, organizing the work togetherly, making people and systems to enable to attain those objectives by motivating through planning process and through the plans. So, like this, the corporate planning is occurring. The next is like a functional planning. Functional planning is not integrated, but it is always segmental. It is derives out of the corporate planning. Corporate planning have a basic thorough foundation for the functional planning on the basis of the activity covered. The next, it is divided on the basis of importance. So basis of importance, it is divided into two, that is strategic planning as well as the operational planning. Strategic planning, it always like a long-term direction of the organization in which it wants to proceed in the future. So strategy planning is the process of deciding on objectives, the organization on changes on the objectives, on the resource used to attain these objectives, and on the policies where they have to govern their acquisitions, use and disposition of these resources. More than 1 year per risky plan for the shorter period. So strategy is like a what strategy we can use to plan this thing. what strategy we just want to have to adopt a good resources for our organization. So that includes strategic planning. The next is like the operational planning. Operational planning is a tactical or a short-term planning where 1 year process of deciding most effective use of the resources it has already allocated and developing control mechanism to get the work done. That is like just a short-term plan where the employer is like putting their employees into work, do their work at their right time and make the available resources to attain the objectives. Next plans are like a formal plan and an informal plan, a proactive and reactive plan, standing plans and single use plan, strategic plan, operational plans, tactical plans and contingency plan. So these all plans are very much familiar to us, so please do have a look on that. So contingency plans are like it is a plan to cope up with the unpredictable changes of an environment or uncertainty. So that is a contingency situation. Next, we are going to see about the nature and characteristics of the planning. So, primacy of the planning, that comes under the nature. Primacy means planning as a first and foremost activity of a managerial function. So, we have to look into like a first foremost thing. So, planning gives a foundation for all other functions like organizing, staffing, directing and controlling. So, it is called as a primacy of planning. The next is like pervasiveness. It's already discussed. Next is future oriented. It is always a future oriented one. Based on the information only we can do proactively. Next is like its rationality. Rationality in the sense planning cannot be used based on whims and fancies that the manager, but it has to be on like completely logical and rational thinking. So the next is like formal as well as it is informal, and it is like intellectual process. It involves all the intellectual activities and it is always action oriented. So these are the main nature and characteristics of a planning. Next is like the process of planning. The planning process comprises of the following steps. The first one is setting goals or objective. First step is to set the goal for which the plan has to be made. Next is like developing promises or assumption. Under the step, all the necessary information regarding the plan are collected through different sources to make prediction plan more informative regarding the condition. Next is like finding an alternative. Under the step, the face different alternatives for the performance of given task and found after discussion and observation. Next is like the selecting the best alternative from this alternatives. So it is like in this step best alternative is selected out of the available alternatives we have, considering all the aspects as well as circumstances. Next is like implementing the plan. How we can implement this plan. Under this step the best alternative to implement the plan and put into action. Next is like the feedback or checking result. After imputation there should be a feedback data is collected, and then this data can be used for the next time make to a good plan which is better than this. Next is like analysis of the opportunities. First of all, the available opportunities have to be made carefully analyzed. For this we have to adopt a SWOT analysis where strength, weakness, opportunities, threat has to be found out in a plan, especially for the better condition. Next, we have to see what are the barriers for the effective planning. First of all, it is always the poor communication. Next is like the resistance to planning. There are some resistance for the particular plan. Third one is like insufficient resources. We don't have sufficient resource to implement this plan. The next is like uncertainties or unflexibilities. Next is like rigid towards a past experience, but we do have a bad experience by implementing this type of plan, so that is our rigidity increases. Next is like the lack of resources. So this comes under the barriers of planning. To achieve a good plan, it should be linked with the long-term process, and it involves all the selection of suitable courses of action, and planning is undertaken at all levels of an organization, and it should be a pervasive and continuous. Thus we can adopt a good plan for our organization. The next section we are going to see about the organizing. The concept of organizing. It comes after the completion of the creative phase of planning, through which managers are able to define what is to be done. Now the question arises, who will do that? Okay, then it is also the responsibility of a manager to define who will do that and what will be the relationship among this person. So in order to organize, the manager have to identify the activities and departmentally organize the activities according to the classified authority and coordinate between the authority and responsibility. Before we have discussed about the process of organizing, next we are going to see about the elements or steps in this process. The first and foremost element in organizing is the grouping, that is creating various departments, divisions, sections in order to perform various organizational activities effectively. Since the objectives of different organizations are different, it is therefore necessary to determine the activities of each departments and divisions. Next is like the linking of the groups. How we can link the groups? After creating the groups, which may be called as department, division, sections, the question arises how to link them up. How we can link all them up. So it is well understood that no group can work isolation. The law independently prevails everywhere. So it becomes necessary to link them up according to the operate and coordinated manner. The next element is like every individual is assigned with a particular task and made responsible to perform those activities. So assigning responsibility is the next step in organizing. It is very important to assign different responsibilities to different individuals because of the productivity issues. Total work in any organization department is large, so it can be completely divided according to the need. The next is like delegation of authorities. No individual would be able to discharge his duties without having any power or authority. So it is an important part of organizing to delegate towards the authority. So it becomes very necessary to define well about the responsibility, accountability and authority. So designing of the hierarchy level, it is to design the connectivity between the individuals to make the organizational working very smooth. So that it make it simple. It will basically make clear who will be reporting to whom. That type of mechanisms can be seen in designing the hierarchical level. Next function we are going to see about the direction. Direction is a process in which managers instruct, guide and oversee the performance of the workers to achieve the predetermined goals. So in fact, managers plays a significant role in directing their subordinates. So next, there are importance of direction. The first one is it initiates action. All actions is required to accomplish organizational objectives and it is initiated through the director. So all the human and non-human resources are to be dealt deftly and diligently to make a profitable organization. Next is like integrates employee efforts. So it has been observed that no organization or no department work in isolation, but each individual and performance affects the performance of others in the organization. Next is like enhances individual performance. So three essential elements of direction is like motivation, leadership and communication. So it plays an important role in tapping the potential of an individual as well. The next is like the brings change. It always brings the change where the direction facilitates changes in the organization as organization is existing in the society and society keeps changing. So all the changes whether the external or the internal are incorporated, implemented through the direction only. Next is like it always brings the stability and balance. Direction provides stability, harmony and balance to work effectively for a longer period, which is attained only through three essential elements of direction, that is motivation, leadership, communication. Let's see different principles of direction. The first one is a maximum contribution is needed for direction and the unity of command and the communication should be in proper direction so that it should be very effective among the superior as well as the subordinate. The good supervision is needed for good direction and the effective leadership as well as effective communication leads to a good direction. Harmony of the objectives. Objectives should be followed by the people in the organization, especially the employee side. Then the satisfaction of all levels is essentially for the direction and the proper feedback is necessary to have a good direction towards the better objective and objective makings. So these are the principles of direction which is to be needed. Next, we are going to see about different models of directing. According to Keith Davis, he have identified 4 types of model. So that is the first one is like autocratic model. In this, decisions are taken by the manager and there is no role for the subordinates under this model. They use authority as well as the power to get things done, which is actually represents the traditional thinking. Next is like the custodial model. This model is quite familiar to the patrimonial approach where management completely decides what is good for the employee side. It is predominantly in family managed business organization. The next is like the supportive model. Supportive model is a focus mainly given to the participation and involvement of the employees in managerial decision making process. It is more dependent upon the leadership than the use of power and money. The last is like the collegial model. Collegial model talks about it is a step ahead of the supportive model which is based on the team concept and here the each employee develop understanding for his and others need therefore work towards a common goal. So these are the Keith David proposed models for directing. On the right hand side, you can see the different management model which is proposed by the Miles. The first one is a traditional model. This model is based on the assumption that no one likes to work and only few workers are creative and self-disciplined. So it is a responsibility of the manager to supervise and control his subordinate. The next is like the human relations model where the model based on the assumption that people want to feel useful and important. Money takes a secondary position but the above mentioned needs are primary in this case. So it is a responsibility of the manager to make every subordinate feel important and useful. The next is like the human resource model. This model is based on the assumption that is not the work is not liked by the all, rather the people want to contribute meaningful goods and feel satisfied on its completion. Next is like controlling. It is one of the managerial functions like organizing, planning, directing, and staffing. It is an important function because it helps to check the errors and to take the corrective actions. So, controlling is determining what is to be accomplished and what is evaluating performance, and if necessary, applying corrective measures. There are different elements of basically 4 elements of controlling. The first one is condition and characteristics to be controlled. What condition have to be controlled? And next is like the sensor. Sensor means it is measuring the characteristics of the condition. What has happened? It must for the controlling system to include sensor. Next is like comparator. Comparator determines need for corrective measures after having comparison between what is occurring and what is the expectation. Next is like the activator. Activator is the corrective action taken to return the system to be expected output. So let's analyze the process of controlling. Controlling techniques and systems are essential for every process in the organization, which involves the following step. The first one is like the establishment of the standard. There is a close-knit relation between planning and controlling. So planning is a yardstick against which a control must be measured. So standard should be established. Second one is a measurement of the performance. How this performance is it achieved or not? The measurement is to be done on the second phase. The third one is like comparing the measured performance to the stated standard. Is our performance is up to the standard? That has to be compared in the third stage. Fourth one is like taking corrective action. So if there is any mistakes in the measuring the performance, it should be taken into the corrective side. Next, so that's depend upon the different process that controls occur. After all the steps of process, the last one is like to follow up what has happened in the process. Next, we will analyze different types of control. There are mainly 3 types of control. The first one is feed-forward control. It also called pre-control, which takes place before the work is performed. Managers using this type of control create policies, procedures, rules aimed at eliminating the behavior that will cause undesirable work results. Second one is the concurrent control. This type of control is in action when the activity is being performed. It not only refers to the employee performance but also such non-human areas of equipment performance and departmental performance. The third one is like the feedback control. This type of control is in action when the activity has been completed. This refers to the control that concentrate on the post-organizational performance. Managers exercising this type of control attempt to take a corrective action by looking at the organizational history of a specified time period. Next, we will see about the different types of techniques and methods in this controlling function. So, first one is a budgetary control. As the name suggests, it's a budgeting formulation of plans for giving future period of numerical terms. Budget can be called as a statement of anticipated results in the financial term, as in revenue, expense, and the capital budgets. So, following types of budgets we can see, that is like a revenue expense budget, time, space, material and product budgets, cash budgets, balance sheet budgets, budget summaries, few based budgeting. So, these are the different types of budgetary control and the types of budgets in a budgetary control. The next is a traditional method where there are few traditional or number of budgetary control devices, such as statistical data has to be formed based on the budget, special reports analysis of the break-even points, operational audit, as well as the personal observation how this can be happened. So the next is like the modern techniques. So we are very familiar with the modern techniques. So first one is like PERT, that is program evaluation and review technique, control through the return on investment, just-in-time inventory, which is a technique for reducing the inventories to a minimum by arranging the production components to be delivered to the production facility just in time to be used. So just in time works best in companies that manufacture relatively standardized products for which there is a consistent demand. Then ratio analysis is the process of generating information that summarizes the financial position of an organization through which the calculation of ratios based on various financial measures that appear. Then the decision tree analysis is a statistical and graphical multi-phased decision making technique that can be used in controlling. Computer aided design, that is what we call as CAD, computer aided manufacturing CAM. So these are the modern techniques which is very familiar for the controlling methods or terminologies. Next, we are going to see about the coordination. So, coordination is the unification, integration, synchronization of the efforts of group members so as to provide unity of action in the pursuit of common goals. So, coordination is very necessary for the effort of solve to conflict in the organization. So, what are the need for coordination? Coordination becomes major issue in the case of large organization, unorganized, complex organization structure. So, there are issues in some organization where the coordination is needed. So, very large organization, so there will be some mess. So for that, a coordination is effective. The next is like know if all. Attitude of the specialist working in an organization sometimes brings the need for coordination. So departmentalization. Because of departmentalization, coordination is effectively needed. Next is like interdependence. It is a law of nature. No living being in this planet is independently working on. So there is an interdependency. For that, the coordination is effectively needed. So coordination is the integration of several parts into an orderly whole to achieve the purpose of understanding. So there are different principles of coordination. So classical management thinker Mary Parker Follett suggested 4 basic principles of coordination. So first one is the principle of direct contact, where it is based on the theme that coordination can never be achieved by freedom, authority, power, order, instruction. The second one is the coordination at early stage. Conflict, disagreement, hospitality, indifference is to be reduced if the coordination has to be tried at the early stage of work. Third one is the principle of continuity. So continuous coordination is needed for the perpetual netting process. The fourth one, the principle of dynamics. Change has to be the only factor which is constant, and change in the organization occur externally as well as internally. So it is needed. So it is called as principle of dynamics. The next is principle of timing, where it states that timing of various organizations helps in the performance should synchronize with each other so that no wastage of time and other resources is there we can see. The next is like principle of reciprocal relationship. In every organization, all the departments are correlated with each other, affect each other's performance, though the amount of reciprocity may not be equal. The principle of reciprocal relation states that the way of performance in such function should be altered in such a way that this effect should each other positively. There are different types of coordination. We can divide it as internal coordination as well as external coordination. In internal coordination, there are vertical and horizontal coordination. It is very important to have a healthy communication channel and synchronization both vertically and horizontally, means among the peer groups as well as the different departments. Substantive and procedural coordination, which means that every organization work is comprised of 2 dimensions, that is substantive dimension, procedure dimension. Substantive dimension involves deciding what to do, and procedural dimension involves how to do. So both this function in every organization are equally important. External coordination refers to the coordination between one organization and its external environment. Investors, financiers, customers, suppliers, consumers, everything is in outside the organization. So the external coordination is effectively needed. So this is all about the functions of management. I included the major portions or the important portions to be covered for the NET exam, the management side and the functions of management. So next is like a communication. What is the role of communication in the management? So in coming videos, we will see much more about the communication part. So I hope you guys enjoyed all this video lecture about the functions of management. If you have not yet subscribed or liked my video, please do like and support. Thank you. Have a good day ahead.